This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. Today's guest is David Reske. Dave is the founder and CEO of Nowspeed, a Boston-based digital marketing agency that's focused on B2B tech firms. David's also a professor at Boston College, where he teaches a course on business planning. He's also the host of a podcast called Marketing in the Now, which has released over 100 episodes now. And if that wasn't enough, he's also the author of a book called Digital Marketing in the Zone, which is available on Amazon. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Cal, thanks for having me here.
So I'm really excited to be speaking with you and learning from you today and seeing what you can share with the audience because you're a veteran of the industry with a wealth of experience, but I know you're also very well attuned to the current marketplace. And so let's just dive in. I got one big question to ask initially here, which is, what's the single most powerful strategy for success in your agency today?
Well, it's a tough question. There's just so many things you have to do as an agency to be successful and survive. I mean, we've been in business for 22 years. And so we've done a lot of different things over that period of time. But if I have to boil it down to one strategy, it's really focus on helping your clients be successful. So, we serve mainly B2B tech companies. That's about half of our business. And we work with clients in a variety of other industries as well. But B2B tech companies are mainly focused on lead generation. And so they really want to drive demand for their business. So that means, awareness, engagement, and helping make those purchases. And so, we package our services well around very focused topics like Google PPC, SEO, content marketing, website design development. We deliver services that help them achieve those goals. We do a lot of, in terms of creating the metrics and results that make that happen. Along the way, I spent a lot of time thinking about process and systems to deliver consistently. We spent a lot of time building playbooks to help our clients achieve their results. We have a theme we have called Playing to Win. And then we invest a lot in new technologies like AI and others. So, things that really help us deliver well and give our clients a competitive advantage. So there's no simple answer to that. The simple answer is, help your clients win, but there's just so much more, behind the scenes that has to happen to make that work.
So what's, different around executing that strategy today in, 2025 versus, 10 or 20 years ago?
I think that in our industry, technology has always been changing. So, there's companies that track the number of marketing apps out there today. There's probably 10,000 or more different marketing apps that you can use. So every week, at least, someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, are you using XYZ marketing app to do your stuff?" As though I should know all 10,000, right? So, we use probably 50 different marketing apps on a regular basis to do our work, but there's always something new, and so we're always looking for applications and systems that'll give our customers competitive advantage instead of things that are nice to have or add-ons. And as I mentioned earlier, right now, AI is kind of changing the game. It's making it easier and more efficient for us to do things like create content, do analytics. It's also giving some clients the feeling that they can do things without their agency and do things on their own. So there's always a balance in the agency world between clients doing things, internally and doing things, through their partners, through the agencies. We like to think that and we're very confident that we have the skills, expertise, the strategic knowledge to help them do it better than they could do it on their own, even when the tools get cheaper and easier. But there have always been tools, there's always marketing tools. Just because you can send an email doesn't mean you know how to do an email marketing campaign. Just because you know how to use ChatGPT doesn't mean you can create a content strategy. You really need experts who can turn all the tools and techniques into viable strategies that create business outcomes. And that's what we do.
How long have you been working with AI?
Well, in some form or another, probably for years, but AI has been baked into our marketing tools for a long time. So we've been using Google AI has been part of the algorithm to help do targeting, and that's been a big part of what we're doing probably for 5 or 6 years. When I talk about generative AI, which is what we're all thinking about with products like ChatGPT, we've been using that really from the beginning, for when it first was commercially available a couple of years ago. So, and that's a core part of us delivering content these days. We've built a whole methodology around AI, because anybody can go into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, write me an article about marketing," but it takes really a expert to educate the AI properly on a brand, basically build core content with original ideas based on, things that the client's got, deliver content that doesn't sound like a generic piece that comes out of, ChatGPT, and then do the QA. So we use professional writers who are using our methodology on that, and to deliver high quality content. The good thing about AI is it helps us get educated quickly on a variety of industries. We can work as experts in different industries where we couldn't before, and we can get things done faster, lower cost. So I think our cost per piece has dropped by 50%. Our price per piece has dropped by 50% in the last couple of years as we incorporated more generative AI into our methodology. So it's a win for us as a win for our clients.
Right, that's great. It's driving costs down. One of the challenges I've seen with AI in the marketing space is trying to use it for any kind of graphic design. Have you cracked the code and how to use it for graphic design, not just text content?
Oh, we have used it a little in graphic design. I would say our graphic designers have kind of experimented in using that. My experience, if you're an expert at graphic design, you can use those tools to create something better and faster. It's a little bit like writing, although many of us think of ourselves as experts in writing, even though we're not, right? We kind of dabble in it. But when you're a graphic designer, if you can take those tools and you can, one of the great things is you might let's create a display ad for a campaign. And the tools then let us create all the versions of that ad faster and easier. But it still takes a lot of original thought to come up with the message, the theme, tie the brand into the design, and put all that together. So, we think that, again, you could create a graphic, but will you create an effective graphic if you don't really know what you're doing? That's harder. The other thing that I think is interesting is that, as non-designers play with these tools, they're kind of, in some cases, they're kind of wasting their time, because they should be focused on their core job, which might be marketing strategy or, some other things. It's usually less expensive to pay a designer to create something great with a tool like that. But I think the tools are getting better and better. And so who knows? It's going to keep getting easier to create great content graphics. I have played with video quite a bit, and that's interesting, but it's the same thing. I think you can create okay video today, not being an expert, but I think if you're an expert videographer or an expert strategist, you can use the tools effectively. And that could and the tools will get easier and easier to do good stuff in that area.
So for agency owners who may not be as experienced or well-versed in utilizing AI as you are, where should they get started to really get up to speed and educated on AI and how to incorporate it more into their own agencies?
I would start using it. I think they should start using it. And I would imagine most agencies are using it today. So, I think you've got to just get on, start using it, and a product like ChatGPT went from like 0 to 400 million users. So, we're all using it. The question is, are you using it to edit, the emails that you're sending out, or really improving your methodology to incorporate it systematically to add more value to what you're delivering to your clients? And that's what I think agencies have to do. We have to use it to leverage our expertise to create something better and more effective, rather than, I think that the temptations for agencies is probably to go too broad into areas we're not experts in, and then rely on AI to do the heavy lifting, even though we don't we don't know what it's doing. So that, I think we all have to stay in our lanes and our core expertise, and that's how we're going to deliver the most value.
Okay. So my question was around, your strategies for success with your agency, but I'm curious, what does success look like for you and your agency now?
Well, it really means growth, profitability, and consistency. So, as an agency, we're about 20 people. So we're not like a venture-based startup where we're trying to grow to 200 people in 6 months and go public. It's about doing great work for clients, certainly growing, certainly being profitable, and, maintaining our clients and doing great work. So, we have modest growth goals, and we want to, you know, make sure that we're around for the long term. We've been around for, as I said, 22 years, and we want to keep it going. It's so interesting. When I was a young startup, like when I was around for a couple of years, and I would meet an older agency owner who'd been around for 22 years, I would think, oh, what could they possibly know? We know all the stuff that's been going on. We're in all the new technologies. They're mired in the old stuff. And maybe that was true, in 2003 when we started. If I'd met someone who was really started their agency in 1990 before the age of the internet. But, we've been doing Google search for 20 years, SEO for 20 years, website design development for almost that long, content marketing, social media since the very beginning. So we've just got this wealth of experience in the current tool set and the modern tools. So, that's really helped us, maintain our clients and continue to do great work.
Great. So you're taking kind of a balanced approach to continuing to grow the business with a healthy profit margin and very prudently, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And that's challenging as an agency because you're always, you're gaining clients and you lose clients for various reasons at the time. And so, maintaining client satisfaction, maintaining, consistency with employees, having good systems and process, delivering results. That's really, that's the name of the game.
Cool. Then you've got to measure that success, right? So I'm a finance guy. I got to ask you at least one finance question
Sure.
while we're chatting here. Like, what's your take on the finance side of your business, and how do you go about managing that?
Oh, I love it. I think that's super important. So I look at, our finances. I actually have 2 meetings a week with our controller. So we put together a scorecard on the business. So we look at financial health every week. And the scorecard has things like status of accounts receivable, cash, backlog, new bookings, sales. And that scorecard really helps me take a quick pulse of the business every week. So that's my Monday meeting. And then on my Thursday meeting with my controller, we look at long-term planning. So every week, and this might be a little excessive, every week we look at the rest of the annual plan and we see, do we need to make adjustments to the annual plan in terms of, our hiring plan, revenue forecast, profitability, extraordinary expenses. We kind of think more globally. So I spend quite a bit of time thinking about the finances and making sure that we're on track, and then taking quick actions if you're off track. So, as an agency, there's many agencies out there that are dependent on a few large clients, and that can have a lot of upside. It can also create a lot of risk for clients. And so if you're not looking at the numbers every week, if you lose a big client, you don't know what to do and you get confused, and that confusion and that hesitation can create a lot of risk for you. Likewise, on the other side, there's agencies that don't do a lot of resource planning. So we do a lot of resource planning. We have a very elaborate system for planning hours and time for people. And so we know that if we win a new client on the upside, we know how to staff it. We know if we have the resources, if we need to hire people. And so having those triggers for when to hire, when to let go of people, and how to control your costs is a big part of my job. And it's something I pay a lot of attention to.
Right. Do you have a favorite metric or two on that scorecard? If you can only look at one or two, could you pick one or two?
Yeah, I think it's backlog against plan, right? So, and that tells me every week if we're on track or off track, right? So is the backlog sufficient to meet, then we look at backlog over break even. So, where are we against plan, and where are we compared to where we need to be in order to break even? Are we making money? Or are we losing money, right? And then that lights a fire under me from sales or business development or client satisfaction, client retention. All of those become action items out of that. So, let's say you're about to go below break even and you're going to start losing money, and a client calls and say, "Hey, we need to reduce our work with you." Do you reduce your work with them in order to save the client, or just say, "Hey, if you don't stay at a certain level, we'll lose you," right? So kind of you have the understanding of your finances in order to make decisions with the client. You may say, "Hey, it's worth it for me to reduce my billings and keep that client at some level while I try to, build the business back." Or you may say, "Hey, we're so busy, we'd rather let you go than reducing our work with you." So every agency has different thresholds on that, but knowing your numbers and knowing where you're at really helps you make those kind of decisions.
Are there any particular challenge that you're facing at the moment that might get in the way of success or hitting your annual goals over the next year? Anything that maybe the insights from listeners might be able to help with?
Well, I think that, we're all looking at the economic headwinds that might be coming. So, with the recent tariffs that have been enacted, um, it's interesting. We don't really know what the impact of that is going to be on the business community. Will we brush it off and it'll be business as usual and kind of it'll grow again, or will it turn us into a recession? So, as an agency, we went through the 2008 financial crisis, gone through the COVID financial crisis and impact of that time. So, I'm confident we can make it through whatever's going to happen, through this. And so I think that, the challenge of not knowing, and the reality as an agency, you never really know what's going to happen in the future, right? Will we win that new client? Will we lose that core client? Will our key employees stay with us? Will we have extreme turnover, right? So I've been through enough of these challenges that I think it's a matter of staying on top of all of these issues all the time. That's really, important to produce the staying power that you need to weather these storms. So is the storm, as an analogy, I sail. So when you're out sailing, so, there was a time a couple of years ago, I was out on my boat and it was a beautiful day and I was heading into Martha's Vineyard, actually. And there was a little harbor there I like to go to. And so I was coming into the harbor and it was a beautiful day sailing with my daughter. And there's this huge storm that was coming up behind us. And I thought, I think it's going to pass. I think it'll miss us, right? The big black cloud coming in, right? And then just as we got into the harbor, it turns out it didn't pass. And this big 30, 40 mile an hour wind hit us, hail hit us, and we just had to get through it. It was another half an hour before we got on the mooring. So get my jacket on, get hitting by hail. But we got on the mooring and we were safe. So, when you're sailing, you got to be ready for that kind of stuff. You can't go out and say, "Well, I'll go out and I hope it's going to be fine. If it's fine, I won't drown. I will, I'll be fine." But, when you're sailing, you got to have the life jackets. You got to have the weather gear. You got to be prepared with the navigation. You got to understand where you are. You got to understand all of this stuff. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. There's rocks, there's storms, there's things that'll sink your boat. So it's the same thing with an agency or business. You got to understand your clients, employees, the business climate, and make those adjustments so you can weather any storm. Great. It's always fun when the wind is behind you and there's no waves and it's just beautiful sunny day, but that's not always the hand we're dealt. So we gotta deal with it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, Dave. Sounds like you've got very good monitoring and management systems in place. I'm curious, you know, how long it took you to develop those systems, and you're probably still developing them and improving them and tweaking them. But how long did it take you from you started the agency until you thought you were kind of on top of things, at least 80 to 90% of how you are today?
It took me a long time. I had the benefit, I had another agency in the 90s. And so I had a phenomenal CFO at that time who helped me understand the finances of the business. So, it helped me when I started this company to think about that experience and come up with that. But it was probably the current system that we're on. We probably developed it maybe 10 years ago. And, and back in the day, I would look at things like the P&L and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement and those financial metrics. And then probably 10 years ago, I created a system of scorecards that helped me a lot. So what I do is I take all the core metrics that I care about. And the reason I got to those is I would have these meetings with my controller, and I would take notes on certain things. And then I would look at what I was taking notes on. And I would always write down, like, well, how much cash do we have? What's the backlog? What do we need to sell to go above break even? What's the next plan? What's the plan for the next quarter? So, and then I took all those core metrics and I put them into a scorecard with her. And that's helped me really understand it. So we've been running under the system for probably 10 years, and it's made a big difference. But, and then getting into this regular mode of having, one very tactical meeting a week to focus on these scorecard issues. We do things like pay bills and approve payroll. It's very much a accounting meeting. And then another meeting with her to think about strategic planning, look at the long term. We separate those meetings deliberately so I can get my head into, the expense statement. Do I approve that? What's the budget for this? And who wants a new laptop? And those are tactical things. And then the other meeting is much more, wow, should we adjust the budget for fourth quarter? When do we make that next hire? What kind of assumptions should we make around salary increases this year? Think about that in another meeting. So I think separating those two meetings helps me, and then, and lets me stay on top of the business.
Cool. That's great. So back, if we think about your storm analogy and the uncertain business environment we're in right now, we have some risks that we could be facing, but on the other side, what excites you about the future?
Well, I'm super excited about AI. So, and what's happening. We actually just launched a new service around generative engine optimization. So just like companies are really thought about SEO for 20 years, right? How do we show up in the organic search results so that we can get more free traffic from search engines like Google and Bing? That's been important for 20 years. Now we're starting to see that the LLMs, ChatGPT, Gemini, they're going to take 50% of that traffic because the LLMs will answer most questions. So people won't have to go to websites anymore, or maybe half the time. So what do you do when your organic search traffic goes down by 50%? And how do you train the LLMs to represent you properly so that your brand is being represented well and you get more of your answers to questions in the LLM? So we developed a whole practice around what we call GEO, generative engine optimization. And I'm super excited about that. I think that that's going to make a huge difference for companies. You're basically training the LLMs to be like another sales rep, to be like another customer service rep with no cost to you, right? So the LLMs will just be answering those questions on your behalf, but will they be answering it well? So when someone asks the question, what's the best digital marketing agency in Boston? What will they say? Just like right now, you can go to the LLMs and say, hey, what's the top 3 Italian restaurants in Waltham, Massachusetts? Well, I'll tell you. It'll tell you. Well, what about number 4? How does that number 4th Italian restaurant get to be one of the top 3? And that's what we've got to do for that number 4. So when they hire an agency like ours, we got to think about how to influence the LLMs to represent them well, so that accurately. We're not trying to trick them or fool them. We're just trying to represent ourselves well, so that that they become representatives and serve our clients' growth needs. So we're all going to have to do this. If you don't do it, if you just leave it to chance, you're crazy.
So without sharing your secret sauce, how do you go about training these LLMs?
Well, that is our secret sauce. So we do a whole service around that. So that's what our GEO service is all about. It's all about making sure that it's the right content, it's the right structuring content, and in getting the right distribution of content across the internet so that the LLMs are picking that up both from the core engines and from search engines. So it blends very nicely with our SEO service. And we think it's going to increase demand for both of those services and our content marketing. So, in order to do that well, you've got to have skills with GEO, you've got to have skills, and we've got partners with technology there. You also have skills in SEO. You have to have skills in content creation, and leveraging AI helps. And then also in design and website production. So we've got all those skills together to help our clients deliver on that. Because if you don't, then you just you're piecing all that together. And I think increasingly, in the age of, the internet, it's easy to find contractors to do pieces of this, but it becomes a mess if you try to do all of that with contractors and different pieces. So we think it's going to be more efficient, certainly less expensive for clients to do with us as one total solution to hit a business outcome. And that's what we're really all about.
Huh. That seems incredibly disruptive, potentially.
It is terribly disruptive. So, if you're a business that's been relying on organic search to fuel your business right now, and who hasn't, right? So when people search for accounting software, accounting tools, we search for tree services, plumbers, software, or everything, right? We search for everything. That's why the reason, Google is worth trillions of dollars is that we search for stuff. And so this is going to change the way that we search for stuff. And the LLMs are going to be very important tool to help us learn about things. And as marketers, we need to influence them to represent us in the best way possible. So that's what this new service is all about. But it complements everything else we're doing. So you have to have, great website. You got to do great SEO. You got to do great content marketing. Once you get the lead, once you get somebody to your website, we can help identify that person. We can help market, nurture, email. So, we have a whole system, an end-to-end system that helps us do all of that work for clients. So, that's what we're all about.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, little Dave Reske earlier in life. Did you know you would be starting a business or however many businesses you have and be a founder?
No, I was not one of those kids that knew what he wanted to do when he grew up. So, I was a marketing major at Ohio State, but I didn't even really know what marketing meant or what it did. I'm not even sure I knew what a business did when I graduated. No offense to Ohio State. I'm sure they educated me properly, but I think I was more distracted by other things back in the day. I started my career in sales, computer sales, when I first got out of school. And then started my first company really at the beginning of the commercial internet. And that, it was 1994, I started my first web development company. And that was lucky, so I started a business. I created a business plan called Online Computer Market. I thought it's a crazy idea that people would want to use dial-up modems to go into a central database and search for things that they might want to buy that way. And I took that idea to computer companies and I said, hey, would you like to do this? And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, why would we ever want to put our products out and let people search and sort across them to bang down our prices and beat us up and compare us easily to our competitors? Because in those days, the sales reps had all of the knowledge and all of the information. You had to go to them to learn about the product, to get the pricing, to all that. So why would they want to share that? Well, the internet changed that whole model. And now, we can research everything before we ever talk to a sales rep. Anyway, so I started that company, quickly pivoted from that business plan into building websites, grew that company up and sold it in the late 90s, and then started this company in 2003. So I was fortunate that I started my career in sales. It gave me a background on what a business really did and how business worked. And then I got, again, very fortunate and lucky that I started a business at the beginning of the commercial internet, and that helped me grow rapidly with that business. It's easier to grow in a market that's growing, and there are a lot of companies that did that, but we also rode that wave. And then, now we're in, then when I started this company in 2003, it was already a very crowded market. So it's, it's still a crowded market. There's like 10,000, I have 10,000 competitors, right? So there's a lot of agencies out there. But we always try to stay ahead on technology and ahead on services for our clients. And so, we think we do a really good job serving our clients and helping them be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur running businesses either. Nobody in my family was a business owner. My dad worked for the same company his entire career from when he got hired out of school until he retired. So this whole business owner entrepreneur community is, not where I thought I would end up necessarily either, but life happened and it's where I ended up. I'm curious, was there anything, any particular moment where you just the bell rang for you and you realized your calling was to start businesses?
Yeah, I was in graduate school at the time, and I was in a class on how to write a business plan, and wrote my business plan and decided that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur at that point. So, and see, it's kind of interesting. So, ironic because right now I teach a course on how to write a business plan. So I've got 20 students who I'm helping think that through too now, and that's a lot of fun. And I'm thrilled to see all their energy and their new business ideas and what they want to do, and helping them refine it and get it done. So I love that. I love that. That's how I started my entrepreneurial journey, and I love helping these students with theirs. So and they're just brilliant. So many really good ideas, really good plans, and it's just fun to help them get to that level that they're going to launch, grow, and who knows, change the world in some way.
So if you could go back in time when you started Nowspeed and, give yourself some advice in retrospect, what would you tell yourself?
I would probably think bigger, and I would probably invest more in probably um, bigger, not bigger, but better people at the time, because I thought I was starting very frugally and cautiously and slowly. It is my second business, actually my first business too. And I think I would have focused more and been, there's just, it's hard to even think that way because there's so many things that would do differently. Package my services better, sell to better clients, get more competent employees. We have an amazing team now, but it took a long time to get there. And so, you know, I think that, focusing on a better team, better execution, better set of clients, all that would have made life a lot easier.
Yeah, we all want to get better faster in hindsight. I do too.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Uh, so we're talking all about business and work so far, but what do you like to do outside of work?
Oh, so many things. So, as I mentioned, I like to sail. So that's really in New England here. That's a summer hobby. So I like to get on the water whenever I can. I also love to ski. Skied in many locations, and I love to travel. So I've been to 70 countries so far. So it's like a little hobby.
70.
7-0. Yeah. So I'm on a quest to get to 100. So yeah, I love to travel, and just trying to plan on my fall travel. Hopefully our passports will still be accepted outside the US this fall. That would be a good thing. And I'll be able to continue my quest. And I love the outdoors. So in addition to skiing, I love to hike. I've hiked the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire, and just love to be in the outdoors, whether it's sailing, hiking, or skiing. It's a great time.
Hmm. What are a couple of the most recent countries you've been to?
Last fall, I went to a trip to Bulgaria, Romania, and Serbia. So, once you've hit a few dozen countries, you can get past the popular ones around Europe and the ones that, the fancy tourist destinations. And that was a fantastic trip because I found even the smallest countries in Europe, they all have phenomenal restaurants. They have great cathedrals, great museums, and people are enjoying life there. So, in Belgrade, Serbia, I just had a fantastic time along the Danube, and visiting the fortress and the castle there and seeing museums. It was just a wonderful trip. So I love learning how people around the world think. And you realize when you travel a lot that America is a great country, but there are a lot of great countries and a lot of great people. And you don't have to be the richest or the fastest growing, the most technology adept, or or have, the biggest cars or the biggest houses to be an amazing place. So, there's just a lot of smart, great, talented people there. Um, and it's fun. So, and when I meet people in this country from those places, uh, I enjoy it too. So, last fall, I was in Miami, and our Uber driver I was got to chatting with him, and he was an entrepreneur who had his business was a startup based in Belgrade, Serbia. And so he was from Serbia, and he's running a startup and then trying to import products into Miami, into the U.S. And on the side, while he was doing his startup thing, he was driving for Uber, and I could totally respect him and understand what he's doing, and wished him well. And it was fun because I visited his country for a little bit. So I think having a good understanding of the world just makes you a better citizen and makes you more appreciative of what we have, and makes you respect people from all walks of life. So I like that part of travel.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. And I haven't been to nearly as many countries as you have, but I was lucky enough. I spent some time in Chile and South America in the mid to late 90s, and we have an office in Jamaica now. So I've been to Jamaica several times and a few other places. And it's great when you run into people from those countries in the US or anywhere in the world, and you've got that connection with them. And, I was lucky I was in South America when I was still, late college years. And, just gave me a certain appreciation for the rest of the world that I probably wouldn't have had if I didn't travel outside the US.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Santiago's fantastic. Lima is beautiful. I really want to get to Brazil. That's one of the countries next on my list. A trip to Rio. But when I travel, I like to do what I call a trifecta. So I'd like to do Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So I'm gonna try and extend it to hit a few more countries off my list.
Great. Yeah, I want to take my kids to South America so they can get that experience at some point in the next few years.
Yeah, take them to Cartagena, to the mud volcano. They'll love that.
Okay.
Now, along the way, I've done some quirky tourist things, and that's been one of the quirkiest. So I'll explain that to you at another time, where you can Google it. It's fun.
Oh. So you spend a lot of time traveling and hiking and sailing and skiing. That's great.
I do, but I'm running my business, and so those are all things that fit into kind of normal vacation hours. So I'm still very committed to Nowspeed, very committed to the agency and what we're doing, and but I do find time on my vacation. My kids are grown, so I get to enjoy travel and skiing and sailing and all these other things with people I enjoy, and it's been great.
Yeah, I used to do a fair amount of boating up until my kids got to be about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old or something. And then the idea of sitting on a boat all day long uh, got old to them. They want to get out and run around and play ball. And
Yeah.
we had to sell the boat and transition to land-based activities.
Yeah, my kids got tired of that too, more like in high school. But sailing is a little bit different because we treat it almost like a family vacation. So, I was big
Yeah.
enough. So, we'd stay on a boat for a week and go from island to island. And that was a lot of fun, but they got tired of it too. So now that they're all grown and all doing their own things, I get to do it with other people I enjoy.
Nice, nice. So, Dave, is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, it's been a great conversation, Cal. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the time.
Sure. If folks want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to contact you?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for David Reske, or you can go to our website, nowspeed.com. And I'd love to interact with any of your listeners who've got questions about the agency.
Well, thank you, Dave. You really shared a lot of great information, regarding AI and, how it could be potentially disruptive, not just a tool. You've got a great handle on your scorecard and your favorite metrics. A lot of great personal activities outside of work. I really appreciate everything that you've shared. Thanks for being on the show.
Great. Thanks for having me, Cal. Thanks very much.
For those listening, thank you for tuning in. If you learned something today or laughed at something, tell somebody about the podcast. Let's get good information into other people's hands. That's good thought leadership and helping out your fellow business owners. Thanks again, Dave.
Have a great day.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We will see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time,